GrowingYourGreens.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you, and still on vacation in Maui. Gonna share another cool organic farm with you guys. So where we're at today is actually, we're next to my friend Ryan's place. And you know, there's a few cool things about Ryan. Number one, I've literally known him for 15 plus years now. Totally cool. And another cool thing is about 5 years I actually came to this very farm and filmed an episode, so I have it actually documented for you guys, and I'll put a link down below if you guys want to see his humble beginnings. Basically, what has happened is that, you know, back 5 years ago, he was working for a local natural foods company locally and was doing that, you know, actually pretty much full-time, and then trying to maintain a little farm on the side. And, you know, slowly but surely, you know, day after day, he'd put a little bit more time into his farm, and yeah, still have to go to work. But at one point, finally, he got his farm built up enough so that he was able to leave his job and do what he really loves. I mean, I love gardening, I love farming. I mean, this is just fun to me, it's not work. And although he is actually probably working technically more hours and harder, you know, what you believe work is what you think of it, you know, I mean, some people might think, John, man, it's so much work to make a video. And no, for me making videos like this for you guys, it's fun, man. For me gardening, me spending time with my girlfriend, me traveling, that's all fun stuff, man. That's not work, man. Because you got to do something with your time. And so that's what he gets to do. He gets to wake up passionately every day. He gets to work on his farm. He gets to make a living to, you know, feed his family and all this kind of stuff. And actually, he's doing better now than actually working full-time you know, with this farm on the part-time. And I want to encourage all you guys out there, if you want a career, if you don't like your job right now, right, it is always an option, no matter where you live in the country, to start a farm, even if you don't have a lot of space, right? Check my past episodes or my upcoming episodes. I have a guy in Portland actually that has a farm out of his garage growing wheatgrass and buckwheat sprouts and sunflower greens. I mean, there's always a way to do it. There's microgreen places that I've visited and made videos about, and that's their indoor farm. You know, and microgreens, they sell for a lot of money. I mean, and the other thing about my friend here on Maui, you know, things sell for a little bit more expensive than the mainland. Plus, you know, one of the cool things he does that differentiates himself, and I always encourage you guys to differentiate yourself. You know, if everybody's growing apples in your area, man, don't grow apples, man. That's too much competition. Grow pears or Asian pears, right? Because nobody's got those, so guess what? Because you're the only guy with them, you could charge more money for them, and the care, you know, in general, probably fairly similar to the apples. And so he really tries to grow a diversity of crops. And actually at this last farmer's market, it was the Maui Upcountry Farmer's Market near Kula on Saturday, which if you go to, #1 farmer's market in Maui, and I'd recommend you guys get there early, very important, like 6:37, because they will sell out of stuff. You know, there's that much of a demand for fresh, locally grown organic produce here in Maui. And that's one of the reasons why he can make this happen. Somebody thinks, yeah, John, his farm behind you, man, it looks really great. Well, actually, the secret is this is actually not his farm right behind me. This is actually the neighbor's farm that also grows using organic principles, but does it a lot different. I mean, if you think of a farm, you think of a place like this with rows and maybe some plastic on the ground to help prevent weeds and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, this kind of farm, you know, while it's cool, and I always encourage you guys to grow your own food and have your own farm, you know, there are more sustainable ways and less sustainable ways to farm, in my opinion. So in this method, basically they're bringing in a lot of external inputs because they're not making a lot of their own inputs for their farm on site. You know, whereas if we look next door, you're going to see, #1, a lot more diversity. And #2, he's actually making some of the inputs he needs to fertilize his garden to make it fruitful, bountiful, and productive. So I guess without any further ado, let's go into his farm. And what I'm going to do today with you guys is actually share with you guys some of the techniques and some of the special crops that he's growing and how to do it. Whether you live in Maui or on the mainland in an apartment in New York City, you'll be sure to see some tips that'll help you grow more food effectively. Whether you want to just grow for you and your family, like I encourage everybody watching this video to do, or whether you want to start a small farm like he has to help feed the community and of course also your family. So let's hit into his cool farm. So this is the road that goes into his farm, and you can see the clearly defined border. You can see just the standard, row crop agriculture up to his property. And then at his property line, he's done something very special. He's using the edges to his advantage, and I want to encourage you guys to use the edges of your property to your advantage. I mean, it's actually quite windy up here sometimes, so he's actually grown windbreaks around the perimeter of his property. And they're just not standard trees or plants that are just good for nothing, right? Everything always has a purpose on his farm, and I want everything that you guys grow to have a purpose, whether you're going to eat it, whether you're going to sell it, or whether it's going to feed your soil and you're growing nutrition for your soil. And that's simply what he's doing. Over on this side, he's growing some cash crops known as sugarcane. I love my sugarcane, but he's growing tons of sugarcane, and he has some of the healthiest organic sugarcane I've ever seen. I mean, it's like this thick in girth. Maybe we'll check that in a little bit. And then over on this side, he has some nitrogen fixing trees that grow pretty quickly, and he can just chop them and drop them to add fertility to his soil. So that's definitely really cool. I guess without further ado, let's go ahead and head into the farm and check it out. So one of the things my friend strives to do is bring fertility to his soil. And one of the ways he does that is by utilizing animals. So he has multiple different kinds of animals: ducks, geese, goats, chickens, and yes, even wabbits. I saw me a silly wabbit. Hey, you guys silly wabbits? Oh, you guys are cute wabbits. So what we're looking at here is actually a chicken tractor. Oh, so wait, no, I mean rabbit tractor. So this is a rabbit tractor actually that he can pick up and actually move to where he needs it to basically, feed the rabbits, just like scrub weeds and produce clippings that he wouldn't normally eat. He feeds them that food, and then actually the rabbits make their rabbit manure. Now, in the last episode that you guys saw, my other friend does not use any rabbit manure, and you could do it either way. You don't need manure to be an organic gardener. There are definitely ways to do gardening without manure if that is your choice. For example, the next door grower, you guys saw the row crops, they bring in animal manures from a local feedlot that's being fed GMO corn and soy, yet they still consider themselves organic. Now the feedlots, are feeding GMO corn and soy, but also antibiotics. That's the kind of manure that I will not and do not endorse or recommend you guys bring in to your farm. If you do want to bring in, manure, know the source. Better yet, if you want to do manure, basically make it yourself. That's even the best, because you know what's going in to the rabbits' mouths. Personally, I would probably not have a whole lot of animals. I mean, once again, there's pros and cons to everything in life, right? If you get married to a stripper, that's a pro and a con, because she's probably really hot, but the con is she was, a stripper. And not to say anything about strippers or anything, but I mean, once again, like with having the animals, right? It's a pro and a con, right? The animals are living creatures. They take a lot more work than the sugarcane sitting next to me, because they're living, they're moving, they're breathing. They could get hurt. They require more constant attention. I mean, if you guys have any kind of pets, a dog or a cat, right? You guys baby your pets, right? And if you have animals, in my opinion, you guys should be babying your animals and taking care of them, because they are actually providing for you, whether you're going to use them for food or whether you're going to use them for manure. So, a lot of my friend Ryan's time now is dedicated to taking care of his animal, whether that means, filling up the water bottle, whether that means feeding them every day, making sure they always have water, and making sure they don't get hurt, or eaten by animals. So yeah, I want you guys to think about this. The other thing I want you guys to think about and realize is that, he is feeding them weeds that are basically not of a really financial value here. But basically, rabbits just speed up the compost process to make the nutrients more broken down and available for the soil. But you could do the same thing by just taking the weeds and putting it into a compost pile to let it cook down. Furthermore, the animals over there, they're going to eat the weeds, right? Like we eat food, and our bodies take out what we need. Some of it is burned in energy, for us to be able to talk and move, and then the rest comes out of us. So they are literally taking the weeds that have, say, 100% nutrition. they eat it and then they poop out 80% of what was in the weeds, when, you know, a much better preference for me and to not have to take care of animals is to put the weeds into my compost and basically, you know, get a higher percentage of net nutrition out of it to put back in my garden. That being said, it will take a lot more leaf matter to break down, because the rabbits and other animals are concentrators of nutrients. So yeah, you know, I always like to give you guys kind of like the full story instead of saying don't use manure, or oh, you should always use manure, right? I want you guys to be mindful, and I try to lay out both angles for you so that you guys could make the decision on what you choose to do on your own, you know, garden or farm. All right, next let's go ahead and move on to, actually it looks like you just harvested some sugarcane. So let me go ahead and show you guys a bundle of sugarcane. All right, so what we're looking at now is just some of the sugarcane that my friend Ryan has harvested, and you can see all the sugarcane plants, you know, over on that side, and these guys are tall. I wish I had as much sugarcane as my friend Ryan does. I mean, he basically has had to train this stuff up because sugarcane doesn't grow up erect like, you know, guys when at night with a hot girl. They kind of like flop over and get, you know, sideways. So he's actually had to painstakingly, you know, tie these guys to go upright to provide windbreaks. And in addition, they also provide some shading to the plants planted below. Now that could be a good thing, you know, when it's super hot, but it could also be a bad thing because that can limit growth. But I mean, no matter what he's doing, it looks like he's doing a great job because the sugarcane is growing quite well. You know, sugarcane is in the grass family, and sugarcane, in my opinion, is the best form of sugar that we should be consuming. You know, if you want to consume sugar, I mean, we get all this refined sugar, you know, with basically everything's been processed out of it. I mean, everybody always says don't eat white foods, don't eat white flours and white sugars and all this kind of stuff. We want to eat natural whole foods, and the whole sugarcane here, I mean, this bunch, oh man, that's pretty heavy. Look at this bunch right here. This green sugarcane is definitely a lot of heft, a lot of weight to it. And it's quite unfortunate here on Maui. You know, most of the sugarcane being produced is not being grown in organic matter. In my opinion, is not super sustainable just so that people could have their white sugar. Most of this sugarcane is sold so that it actually can be juiced with sugarcane juicers and actually drank right up. And if you visit Ryan at the farmer's market, he will bring juiced up organic sugarcane, you know, straight from his fields. And let me tell you, I had some at the farmer's market and some of the best stuff. And if you haven't ever had that, you gotta have it. It is super sweet and uber delicious. So yeah, this is just one of the crops that he grows to differentiate himself from other growers, because not many people, you know, grow the sugarcane. And he has multiple varieties of the sugarcane, and much like apples, you know, whether you got Granny Smith or Fuji apples, each variety of sugarcane grows a little bit differently and of course tastes differently as well. So what we're looking at now is another specialty crop that, you know, I don't often see around, but Ryan has been very successful growing this crop. And this is raspberries. And I know you're thinking, John, you can grow raspberries in the tropics, man. I thought they were a temperate climate fruit. Well, actually, these are not just any old raspberries. These are actually called the Mysore raspberries. And check them out, man. These guys are like black raspberries. I want to always encourage you guys to eat your foods of color. And if you live in the tropics, you should definitely be growing some Mysore raspberries. Quite delicious. Super good. And these guys, you know, grown the way Ryan grows them, check it out. They're also super productive. These are actually very labor intensive to harvest. So unless you got a lot of labor, you might not want to grow these. And these got some nasty thorns on them, you know, more akin to blackberries than actually the raspberries. But you know, he'll harvest little containers of these, and guess what? When you're the only guy at the farmer's market who's got the Mysores, you could charge almost any price you want. So what we're looking at now is actually, we're looking at one of Ryan's fields, for lack of a better word. And this is not like the farmer next door that has standard row crops, right? Ryan has row crops, but it's a diversity of different crops. He doesn't just plant all kale in this section and all okra over there and all the eggplant over there. You know, he has it all mixed up. And you know, this is my style of gardening. I like to intermix things and interplant things, and that's very valuable. So if you get an outbreak of pests on this kale, it's not affecting the kale, you know, on the South 40 over there. And this technique I personally like to use Plus, it also breaks up the monotony and makes things look cool. In addition, because of the way my friend Ryan is farming, he's more productive than the farmer next door due to his practices. And as you guys can see, one of the practices, unlike most commercial growers that grow a bunch of lettuce, right? They'll come in with their knife and chop off, you know, the whole head of lettuce and say the whole head of lettuce, you know, or they'll chop off their whole kale plant, say the whole thing of kale. Ryan comes and carefully and painstakingly harvests the leaves off these kale plants, and he'll harvest like one leaf off this plant, one leaf off this plant, one leaf off this plant, and because he's got 100 plants all the way down the row, you know, he'll have bunches of kale to sell at the farmer's market. You know, now if you're just growing for your family, you won't need 100 plants, but you know, I definitely like to have like, I don't know, 20 odd plants, you know, during the winter when things slow down. Unfortunately, or fortunately for Ryan, things don't slow down here in Hawaii because it never gets super cold like the mainland. Now, one of the things I want to let you guys know about is the method of harvesting he's using. I call it, for lack of a better word, sustainably harvesting. Because think about it, if you took this kale plant, you chopped it down, and then you just sold the kale right here, then the plant would not be productive for you, and then you'd have to start again, plant the seed, and keep it growing. It's going to take a lot more time to replenish, right? I always want to encourage you guys to keep your plants for as long as you can, provided they are still productive. And if you grow them in good, nutritious soil like Ryan has here, and he's included things like the rock dust that I like to use, and adding compost back into his farm, you know, you can maintain production and still get good yields. In addition, because Ryan is harvesting in this fashion, you know, he's harvesting baby leaves, so the customers are also getting a higher quality product, in my opinion. If you're going to buy kale or collard greens or any kind of greens in the store, you always want to get the smallest leaves because they're going to taste better, they're going to be more tender, whereas many growers may pick those old, nasty, long leaves that just aren't going to taste as good when you're trying to, you know, just cut them up and use them in a salad, for example. So, you know, I've had some of the greens here, and I got to tell you, they are amazing. All right, check this out. I know you guys might be thinking, John, is that an Earthship? Man, it looks like the framing of an Earthship. Well, no, Ryan's not building an Earthship here, although he might one day. What you're looking at is actually his cool tomato trellis, right? I mean, Ryan's kind of like me. He likes to reuse things and, you know, and make things as most efficient as possible so that he can save on labor, and it makes less work in the long run. If you just let your tomatoes sprawl out on the ground, right, they're going to take more area, more space, and you're going to have to hunt and pick for the ripe tomatoes. Whereas with this, he's reusing wood and actually irrigation line that was previously existing on the property to make an amazing trellis structure, one like I've never seen before. I mean, this thing is like towering out at like 10 feet tall, and just with some simple wood, some wood screws, and this irrigation tubing, he's made a really nice structure. To me, this looks like something you could like, you know, one of those gazebo things you walk through when you're getting married. And the other thing he's doing is that he takes the time to single stem his tomato plants. You know, these guys grow really tall, and when they grow tall and up and over the top, he actually weaves them back the other way, and he's keeping the foliage or the leaves down so that he can easily pick and see the tomatoes when they're ripe. So, you know, not many farmers take the time to do it right, to be most efficient, and also, you know, it enables him to control bugs and disease much better because there's, you know, very few leaves on the plants. I definitely like this technique a lot, and especially in a home environment like I'm at, you know, and many of you guys are, you're going to want to grow your tomatoes vertically, get them off the ground, and maybe even next year, because Orion's doing it, I might have to single stem my tomatoes too. All right, just wanted to give you guys a walkthrough of this cool trellis structure, man. I mean, if this thing was fully enclosed, it'd be quite cool because you just have tons of tomatoes growing. But check it out. He not only has tons of tomatoes growing, but if we look at the other side, oh, that's yumbalicious right there. My favorite sugar snap peas there, right here, coming out the vine. I'm gonna go ahead and try this one. Hear that crunch? Wow, best Maui grown sugar snap pea I've ever tasted. All right, so what we're looking at now is actually another area of Ryan's farm. Now, he just doesn't have all row crops like I showed you guys earlier, you know, and diverse row crops at that. He has many different areas, and I want to encourage you guys, whether you have a home garden or a farm such as this, you know, don't put all your eggs in one basket. You want to have different areas with different gardening techniques, because what you're going to find is if you had only row crops with plastic on top, you're going to be limited into what you can grow, you know. So what he's done here is actually he's built raised beds with recycled lumber, much of it that he's gotten, for, if not all of it, he's gotten for free actually. And it's just random pieces of lumber, whether that's 2x4s or 2x6s or, you know, stakes. And he's basically built these amazing raised beds that he has actually brought in some soil and used some native soil to have a little bit different soil consistency. And because these are raised beds, you know, he has a bit more control of the soil and also, you know, the weather and whatnot in here, because the soil does stay a little bit warmer. You know, in my personal home garden, you know, I grow in all raised beds. I don't mess around with growing in the soil because, you know, the soil, I don't know the quality of it, and I want to make sure I have the best soil because basically I'm feeding myself. Now, Ryan's in a little bit different situation. While he is feeding him and his family with his food, his primary purpose for growing is to remain viable as a business. And he's doing a fine job at that. One of the ways he does that is by growing crops that people think you can't grow in Hawaii. Like, for example, here he has some celery. And, you know, there's far and few in between organic growers that grow celery in Hawaii because it can be challenging and difficult. And if you go to the, you know, cooperative extension office, they don't even say you could even grow that. And there's a lot of crops that they don't even recognize or say you could grow because it's just too hard. So he's figured out special techniques that allows him to grow celery. And guess what? When he's the only one with celery at the market, he could charge whatever he wants if the people want it. And, you know, he's been selling out of his celery. So that tells you something. The celery looks super amazing to me. And besides just the celery, in the next bed over here that you guys can't see, he's growing yam bean or jicama. And I mean, the biggest jicama I ever saw was at the farmer's market on Saturday at Ryan's booth. I mean, it was like huge. It was huge. And jicama is one of my favorite root crops, and you need a long season to grow a good jicama like he has here. And of course, when you're got good nutrition, rock dust, and good soil, you know, your plants are gonna perform for you. And that's one of the tips that I'll share with you guys. I mean, one of Ryan's secrets is really working and developing the soil, figuring out what the soil needs, what the plant needs, and simply providing it. Because really, Ryan is not growing simply vegetables, right? He's growing soil. And I want you guys out there to focus on not growing jicama or celery, but focus on growing your soil. When you grow your soil and you have good soil, right, it'll be a lot easier for you to grow the vegetables. So what we're looking at now is Ryan's shade house, where he starts all the babies that he grows on his farm. Now, I mean, each one of the different trays has, like, I don't even know, like 100 cells. I mean, this is a scale far beyond what I've ever done before, but that's because he has a full-on farm that produces, you know, literally pounds and pounds and pounds of food every week to sell at the farmer's market. So he starts all his seeds right here. And I want to stop right there for a second. You know, it's always the best, in my opinion, to start your seeds if you know what you're doing, right? Because a seed packet is cheap and buying plant starts is quite expensive. He probably couldn't be financially viable if he relied on somebody else to make the starter plants that he would plant in his farm here. So for that reason, you know, especially if you're a farm, you need to learn how to properly start seeds and grow them out. Now, for many of you guys that may not have even started to garden or grow food yet, I would definitely recommend doing a mixture of buying some plant starts, because you're assured, you know, a plant start that's bigger is going to be more, you know, resilient to things happening to it, and you'll be a higher level and probability of success. Whereas if you start seeds and you don't do enough water, or too much sun, not enough sun, you know, the plants could be stunted, you know, when they're growing up. And the most important time of a plant's life is not when it's producing for you. It's when it's in its baby stage and when it gets transplanted out, right? You want to make sure it doesn't have, you know, it's root bound when you plant it out. And you also want to make sure it has a healthy, happy life. Like, if he forgets to water his little babies here and they run out of water, well, they could lose their life, or, you know, worse, in my opinion, they'd actually get stunted growth. And then because, you know, they're stunted at birth, or, you know, when they're young, they're never going to fully mature and develop into their full genetic potential. And so he has all different varieties, and he selected varieties that will do well in the climate here. That's another very important tip, no matter where you live, whether you live in Hawaii or, you know, California or Nevada. you want to select varieties that are going to do well in your particular climate. And one of the ways you can learn this is by talking to other farmers if they're willing to share that information with you. But more importantly, like Ryan has done since he's been farming for so long, he's done trial and error. He buys different kinds of seeds. He plants this variety of carrot, that variety of carrot, and he's like, oh, well, that variety of carrot didn't yield so well, so I'm not going to grow that again. But this variety did really good, so now I'm going to keep growing that kind. And then he'll constantly, strive to try different varieties to see what happens, plus new varieties, maybe colorful carrots like red carrots, purple carrots, and that's more appealing to customer than just the standard orange carrot, which everybody seems to grow these days. I'm happy to learn that, because he is growing using organic methods here, he uses organic seeds whenever possible. But one of the sad things and facts about organics is that in this day and age, not all the seeds in the entire world are always available organically. So there are rules that say basically, if you can't find a seed organic, you can use a conventional seed and then grow it under organic growing practices, and then you could still call it organic. And that's simply what he's doing here, so that he can have a nice wide range of variety that's going to yield well in this particular climate. And I want to encourage you guys too to not be so like walking with blinders on and I only got to get organic seeds or organic plants, right? As long as it's not GMO, you want to get some seeds and start them out so that you can grow them. And then like Ryan does here, he saves his seeds. So once he grows out some varieties, sometimes he'll let some plants go to seed. He'll collect the seeds, save the seeds, and then regrow the seeds, which is now getting more accustomed to the climate here. Plus now there are, first generation grown organic seeds that he's produced himself. And the best seeds are, of course, the ones you save yourself, in my opinion. So one of the cool things about my friend Ryan is that he will make use of any resource that would be normally thrown away. This is a resource that's constantly being thrown away, but yet you can use them to grow food. This is especially important if you live in an apartment in New York City and you have a little patio. Well, hey, get an old ass bathtub, put it in your patio, fill it with some dirt, put a little screen mesh in the drain, because that's where it's going to drain out because it is sloped, right? And plant some food in it. I mean, might look funny to your neighbors, but, Ryan doesn't have any neighbors close by to see this growing. But he's simply using an old cast iron bathtub, and these guys can be heavy, as a large pot. I mean, I always want to encourage you guys to think out of the box or think out of the bathtub. What he's growing here is actually he's growing watercress, one of my favorite leafy greens to eat. They like it a little bit more moist than other plants. Nice and peppery. And another, on the other side, on the back side here, he's got another peppery plant known as the horseradish. And let me tell you, it's definitely a good thing to grow horseradish, and the watercress in the bathtub, because these guys are spreaders. They will basically spread out and root out and take over a space if you allow it to. But in a container, it can't grow past the boundaries, of course, of the container. All right, so here's some more cool containers Ryan is using to grow crops in. So of course, first I think we have some standard large wide mouth pots back there, and all of these have similar crops. I believe they are radishes right now. And whether he's got large plastic pots, and one of the cheapest place to buy those large plastic pots is at your local hydroponics store, I have found. Some of the large ones could run maybe 10 bucks for, and that's a nice sized pot, right? Other things he's using is like this. It looks like a little kid's wagon or something like that. I mean, it could also, another thing that looks very close to this is like one of those pull-along igloo coolers. You just pop some holes in the bottom. I've seen people use that before. Once again, all these were reclaimed out of the landfill, and just basically put some good soil in and planting things in. Now, here's the trick, right? If there's pros and cons to everything in gardening, and especially when growing some of these delicate root crops, right? If you have nematodes in your soil, the nematodes will jack up, like radish roots. That's happened to me before, right? But when you put the soil in the container, and you control it, the nematodes can't get in there, and they just can't like squirm and squiggle, or however they move, from somewhere else and get in there to mess up your crops. And I'm sure that's one of the many reasons he's using containers to grow these specific crops. Next, I want to show you a few more cool containers he's growing out of. All right, so I think my friend Ryan takes the cake for being the most innovative farmer that I know what he's using here is really cool. I don't know if you guys could see that on the camera, but basically they got those big plastic dog houses that come in two halves, the top half and the bottom half. Literally, this is the top half of one of those plastic dog houses, and he put some wood over on this side to basically block out, you know, the part where the dog walks in. He's filled this with soil once again and is just using it as another container. You know, another thing he's using, and he uses a lot of these guys because they are available, are like the 35-gallon plastic drums. He literally takes like a Sawzall and saws it in half, puts some holes in the bottom, and guess what? Voila! Instant plant growing container. So next, what we're looking at is one of the many fruits that Ryan cultivates here on his farm, and it's simply the bananas. He's actually done quite well with his bananas. He has probably like over 150 different clumps on their own, and each clump basically has all these little baby plants that come up one at a time, and each basically plant, or banana plant, people would call them a tree, but technically they're not a tree, comes up and they do what they're doing here, and you can see like a bunch of these clumps. They got the big banana flower on the bottom, and they make a big rack of bananas. He has many different varieties of bananas, and actually I just had an apple banana earlier. If you come to Hawaii, you got to get one of Ryan's apple bananas. They're some of the sweetest that I've tasted. But, you know, this is basically another cash crop for him, because just with 150 clumps, he makes, I don't know, like 300 pounds of bananas, you know, give or take. It's a little bit different every time. But this is a constant supply and harvest. And yeah, amazing. And they produce fairly quickly compared to other fruit crops that can be grown. So, you know, if you live in the tropics, I would definitely encourage you guys to grow some heirloom varieties of bananas, not just the standard Williams or Cavendish banana that's so commonly found in your supermarket. So what we're looking at now is a pond that Ryan put on site here. Now the pond has the fish in there, which he's currently, you know, developing and letting them grow, and he is using some kind of basically aquaponic system, for lack of a better word. Now he doesn't have a formal aquaponic system where he's got, you know, the water running out, but basically he'll pump out water and basically literally feed his vegetables with the fish water, which is basically the pee and the poop of the fish that basically adds fertility to his soil. So this is just yet another way that Ryan is adding fertility besides the other animals. He's also using the fish, and of course uses and makes plenty of his own compost here. So what we're looking at now is basically a trellis system that Ryan has created out of using some standard T-posts, probably like every, I don't know, 10, 12 feet, some wire, and actually some cane grass that was growing on his property. So this is actually done very methodically. About every foot he has some wire running down to the next one. It's weaved inside of the cane grass, which is a locally produced resource here on site. And he's planted all his new little tomato plants down below to let them climb up and grow this amazing low-cost trellis. Ryan is full of cool and innovative ideas on how to reuse things on site instead of bringing in new things whenever possible. And this is one of the things I admire about him, and I want to encourage you guys, you know, to always think, once again, outside the box and think about, how can I use, you know, this resource on my property, whether it's, you know, old plants that would have just gone into the compost pile. Could I use that to make a trellis out of, like, old tree limbs, right? If they're straight, shave them down so you can make, you know, a trellis out of it, you know. Use some twine or some wire, you know, instead of having to buy expensive trellis material, make your own out of materials you got. It's definitely smart and gonna save you money in the long run. All right, so what we're looking at now are some lilikoi vines, and these guys are quite productive. There's a lot of lilikoi, and for those of you guys that don't know, lilikoi is a Hawaiian word for passion fruits. I love my passion fruits. He's got some standard passion fruits here, and you know, one of the things I want to point out in this area is that all along the property, he's basically growing his own fertilizer, right? And I want to encourage you guys to also grow your own fertilizer. You know, in many places around the world, you can literally grow your own fertilizer. Like, John, how do you grow fertilizer? Man, I thought that's the stuff that comes out the bag. Well, think about it. Where did fertilizer originally come from before we had stuff in a bag, right? It came from nature. You know, plants would grow next to other plants. They'd create symbiotic relationships with their roots and all this kind of stuff. And the plants, such as the one right here, which is actually called the pigeon pea, is basically a nitrogen fixing plant. So it absorbs the nitrogen out of the air, stores it in the root zone, and of course, you know, all the leaves and everything is rich in nutrition as well. He'll literally chop and drop this stuff, basically break it up, you know, tear pieces off, drop it on the ground, and guess what? When that stuff breaks down, it feeds the plants that are next to it. You know, sometimes he'll use the pigeon pea to shade things out if they're young and tender, and until they get more strong. Then he'll chop down the pigeon pea, and then he'll feed that to his plants. And let me tell you this, the best food for plants is animal manure. No, I'm kidding. Is other plants, man. I mean, this is how nature's system is designed and set up, you know. If you put too much chicken manure on your plants, you may burn your plants, but you could put as much leaves and plant matter as you want on your plants, and it's not gonna burn. So think about that one. So I try to model, for the most part, nature's systems. Of course, now when you're on a farming situation and Ryan is pulling out, you know, tonnage of food, you know, on a monthly basis and pulling this food off, he's taking basically nutrition out of his farm and sharing that and getting it out to people in the community. He also needs to be bringing back that much or more, in my opinion, nutrition back to his soil to keep his land fertile and enable him to keep his production up. Because if he exports more nutrients than he's bringing in, he's going to be running at a deficiency, and you can't run in deficiency whether it's in your checkbook or at a farm for very long. So another innovative way Ryan's using actually the pigeon pea is actually to provide support and trellis up his chayote squash vine. Now, Ryan is the one responsible for me growing my own chayote squash at my place so that I could start eating the tips like he does, and actually like he sells at the market. This is a chayote squash vine, and this is a delicacy, you know. The vine grows, and basically you clip off the little tip right there, and this is edible raw. It's like such a delicate and delicious flavor. It's quite good. But besides just the baby tips that you can eat raw in salads, that's a chayote squash fruit. You can see two excellent examples here. These guys are hunking, man. And the squash can be cooked up like any other squash. And these guys are doing quite well also. And these provide, you know, two sources of income. But at the same time, you can see that pigeon pea here that's basically that's being succumbed by the chayote squash. But guess what? The pigeon pea is growing. It's also providing nutrients for the chayote squash. And also he could chop and drop this stuff to basically provide nitrogen to his chayote squash vine. Now, if you've never heard of chayote squash before, I want to encourage you guys to go visit a local ethnic market, like a Mexican market. Sometimes the Asian markets also will sell the chayote squash, and check it out. If you want to start one of these for next year and only grow them in the summertime, because where it gets freezing, these guys are not going to make it, although there are more, you know, cold tolerant varieties, but this standard green kind is not one of those. You basically just take the fruit and you plant it like half in dirt, half out of dirt, and it's basically sprouts up and grows a whole new vine. So you'll want to do this, you know, about the same time you plant your tomatoes for next spring. You're going to want to do this inside, keep it warm, so that it germinates and then makes a vine for you. And let me tell you, these vines grow very quickly, and besides which, they're also very delicious. So this next shot is very important. I'm not going to talk too loud because otherwise it might be quite dangerous for me. You see there's a crack in this tree right here. And if you look very carefully, right, I know some of you guys got really good x-ray vision, you could see in the crack, and I'm not gonna dare stick my hand in there, but he has a naturally occurring wild beehive, right? One of the things Ryan strives to do is basically create homes for creatures. And I want you guys to create homes for creatures too. I mean, he creates good soil to have good soil microbiology. You know, he creates a good home with a lot of organic matter to feed the worms in the soil. You know, he's providing a good home for his plants, but he's also providing a good home for the bees in this basically tree that's rotten out, that's no longer, well, almost not alive. And, you know, the bees have had their own hive in there. Now, he does not harvest the honey. This is a wild hive he does not mess with. But the bees, in my opinion, are an integral part of farming and your gardening. Without the bees, we would lose 30% of the crops because the crops need to get pollinated by the bees. So having simply wild bees here that are doing their own thing, it increases Ryan's yield. And I want to encourage you guys out there, if it's legal where you live, to start keeping bees to, to help bees out. I mean, they're getting, colony collapse disorder and all this stuff due to the, use of pesticides and, all these different chemicals in nature. And I want you guys to help the bees out, because commercial farming and commercial keeping of bees, in many instances where they're shipping bees across the country, they're using different, chemicals in the beehives, is not a good thing. I mean, literally, Ryan lets these guys do what they're gonna do on their own, right? I mean, he does also have hives that he tends to in other areas of the farm to definitely increase his production, as well as he's starting to produce some honey. But he's only gonna take the extra honey, and unlike many farmers out there that just go and take all the honey from the bees, and then the farmers actually have to feed the bees sugar water, right? He's trying to live more in accordance with nature, and if the bees have extra honey, then he'll kind of just, tap off the top. It's like when I was a kid, right? I'd go in my mom's purse and just take like $1 or $2 so that she wouldn't miss it. And that's literally what Ryan's doing with the honey. In any case, the sun's going down. I want to get some time to interview Ryan on the show here for you. So I think next we're going to go ahead and sit down with Ryan, ask him a few poignant questions about his farm and some tips that he could give you guys to increase your garden at home or your farm if you got one. So now we're with my friend Ryan, who's the farmer here on this amazing property that I've gotten and had the pleasure to show you guys, and we're just gonna simply ask him a few questions. So the first question is, Ryan, why do you choose to grow using organic practices? And actually, even more than organic, you're making many of the inputs actually on your farm.
The main reason that I grow my own food is that I want to feed myself and feed my family. My family's super important to me, and when I look around what's available, I was like, well, I have a problem with that, I have a problem with this, and I get too picky, and then I'm like, all right, I guess if I want to do it right, I just need to do it myself. And so now 7 years later, I've been doing it myself, and now I'm to the point where I can share that with the rest of the community as well.
Wow, I mean, that's why I started growing my own food as well, just like Ryan, because I was not happy with the current food system and how foods, even, organic food is raised. They're just not doing specific things that I feel, and Ryan would also probably feel, are really important to have high quality and literally the best tasting food. So Ryan, next I want to ask you about the animal agriculture. So you've incorporated, things like the rabbits, the chickens, the ducks, and even some goats into your whole mix here. What role do they play in your farm overall?
It adds to the diversity, and diversity is everything, really. So I like to provide housing for all the animals. So all the animals provide a different mineral, different spectrum. They all have a function on the farm, and I have pasture land that has a future that's going to be an orchard. Well, in the meantime, I'm busy on maintaining a productive farm. The goats can keep that maintained, and all the while building up the fertility. They eat the grass, they spread their manure, and it's building up the fertility. So, and I rotate those goats around. I move them to another location, and then when I go into work in that area, it's going to be easy to work because it's not going to be overgrown with thick woody stuff. I can get in there, and they've made the soil so much better. They've done a lot of the hard work for me. The same with the chickens. With the rabbits, I always like to say it takes the work out of weeding. So instead of weeding, I'm actually harvesting food for the animals, food for the rabbits, either for the chickens or the rabbits or the fish. And so then I'm in relation with them, and then their manure is in relation to the soil microbes, and so it helps us, make all these circles and all these connections in the soil food web.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to have connections. I mean, he's using a lot of the inputs on site and keeping them on site. Let's talk about that for a second, Ryan. How important is it to you to be, as sustainable as possible?
Well, I look at all the options. It's very important. That's my main goal, is to figure out how to, really tighten that loop, close that loop, and really discover, and figure out what is actually sustainability. So I look and I see other organic farms, and I watch what they do, and a lot of it is, okay, it's organic, you need so much nitrogen, you go to the feed store, the fertilizer store, and you buy big pallets of fertilizer that's organic. And you're like, all right, well, okay, what is in that? What makes that organic? Can I do that myself? And I look at it and I go, oh, well, geez, that's like chicken manure, slaughterhouse byproducts, blood meal, bone meal. And where does that come from? And you look and you go, oh, well, those actually, you think, there's a naive perception that all comes from organic farms. But the reality is it doesn't. Most of the organic farms keep that for themselves. And mostly what's available as certified organic, NOP certified organic fertilizer is, slaughterhouse byproducts and animal byproducts from factory farmed, antibiotic, GMO fed animals. And that is certified organic. And that's what it is. So to me, it's substandard. Organic isn't really my goal. So I say, all right, well, I want what they want out of that. You get the nitrogen and all the minerals and everything that come out of those animal byproducts. So I'm like, all right, well, I guess I need to go a little deeper and I need to do it myself and do that dirty work and really have that relationship with all those animals so that I can really understand and know what's going into my food. So I can just go buy GMO-fed animal, manures and byproducts, but it has, possibly laced with all this GMO contamination and, antibiotics and hormones and all kinds of whatever that I just really don't know about. It's a big question mark. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to do it myself. And so that really helps me to close that loop. I can produce the animals, I feed the animals on the farm, whatever isn't good enough to sell that I don't eat, then I refeed it to the animals and cycle it. So I can lose a whole entire crop, but it's not really a loss because it goes back into the animals and then they turn it back into fertilizer and then that feeds the next crop. And so that helps close the loop and gets me closer to that word, sustainable.
Awesome. Yeah, I want to encourage you guys whenever you can to think about these kind of things. Most people that are organic gardeners just buy the organic stuff at the store and put it on their crops without even thinking about it. I try to teach you guys a different way and basically in my videos provide you options. In this episode you're learning how Ryan does it. In the last episode you learned how my other friend does it without actually the use of animals, and the choice is yours. I just want to give you guys a whole bunch of different things you could try to see which one makes the most sense for you, because I just want to provide you guys options, and at the same time I'm learning. Every farm I visit, I'm learning so much new information to make my farm that I have one day amazing. So Ryan, how many acres do you have here? And is it easily workable by you and your family?
We're about 4 acres. We have a couple of little, neighbors that we're have some pasture on, but about 4 acres, and it's not even all used yet. But we're able to be quite productive. It's pretty intensive production. And I'd say, it probably takes 40, 80, 120, 200 hours a week about altogether, so whoever that is, if that's my family or if I have some help, to be able to maintain that. So maybe, 50 hours a week an acre. But you have to also think that it took me many years to get to that point of not being productive for many years and just learning, and then you building the infrastructure and building that soil up so that you're building that equity in the soil so that then you can start getting that residual effect from that. So it takes time to get to that point.
Yeah, good point. I want to always talk about building up your soil. I talked about it earlier in this episode, but it really is that important. Good farmers know that they are actually, once again, building soil, not actually growing plants. So, Ryan, another cool thing, about you specifically is that I know you used to work like pretty much a full-time job and then have a part-time farm, and you're able to leave your job and come full-time on the farm. You want to share this and provide some inspiration with people out there that are working in a job that they hate for money that they don't need, when they just rather be out in their garden and you are actually able to make it happen. And what are some tips that you would give the people out there that maybe want to have their own farm one day and be able to be sustainable and use their own farm for their source of the income like you've created for yourself?
If you're grateful, your cup is always full. So be grateful for what you have. Start with what you have and be grateful for what you have and use what you have. And that's how I feel like we've been able to build this farm. It's like looking at bathtubs and whatever, not as necessarily trash and like somebody else's maybe discarded, 15-foot piece of fence that I can, on a shoestring, start and build and, take little pieces. And then while I have a full-time job, be grateful for that full-time job, because that was able to kind of fund the infrastructure of the farm. So I always said I was grateful for my job that it was able to afford the farm, because to do it the way that I really want to do it, it's actually not just something that happens overnight. And so it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of energy. And, you know, if you see it as labor and work, then, you know, maybe you'll get discouraged, you know. And if you count how many hours you work and how much money you make, you'll be like, oh, I'm making $2 an hour. Like, it's not worth it. I'm going to keep my job. But if you see it as what you want to do and there's a passion and you know you're building the equity in, you're building that equity, you're putting in the soil, you're building that infrastructure, that is the bank account. The farm is the bank account. So you can put all your energy and resources into that, and you know that you have faith that it's going to come back. It's going to come back later. So you build a pond and you invest in livestock and plant varieties and soil amendments, and you know, can be thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in like building up the soil and getting the pH and getting the mineral content right. Then once it's there, it's less input. So in the beginning of farming, it's a lot of input and very little output. And so it can be discouraging. So you have to hold the vision and keep your eyes on the prize, that you can move forward into the future where there's less and less and less and less input and more and more and more and more output. And then that is the goal that we're looking for.
Awesome. I mean, I always want to encourage you guys out there, whether you want to farm or whether you're not ever going to open a farm like Ryan's doing, is always to live with an attitude of gratitude. You know, every day I wake up, I'm super grateful for waking up, because some people simply just did not wake up today, you know, and able to do the work that I do, visiting farms, having so much fun in life. And once again, you know, I want you guys, besides just thinking about the money, because yes, we all need money in our society to live, but also think about what you would enjoy. I mean, I love gardening, I love farming, I love visiting farms, I love what I do. And even if I'm not making the most money, as long as I have enough money to live, survive, and do what I want, I'm totally happy with that. And I want to encourage you guys to maybe go a little bit in this direction, because it seems to me in America today that everybody's focused on the almighty dollar. You know, to be successful, you got to be rich. Well, to me, success is doing what you love, having a smile on your face, and more importantly, helping others like I do in all the videos here. So Ryan, is there any other last tips and tidbits of knowledge that you'd like to share with all the other gardeners and farmers out there? Because I know, I mean, you know so much about this stuff. I mean, it's amazing.
The tip is the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And so remain open and don't think that you know everything, because there's always so much to learn. And really just, you know, having a relationship with your farm. I spend a lot of time, I work a lot at night, and I can really like examine the plants and find out what bugs are working and find out what sort of the beneficial insects, and I see stuff crawling around and I see what is it doing, and you really can get that relationship. And the same with the relationship with all the animals. And another good tip I have is, it's not even my tip, right? Everyone's always said, if at first you don't succeed, try again. So how many times have we failed at growing celery, or failed at growing collard greens, or failed at growing every crop? You know, you have to fail in order to learn. And as much as I like to think I can just watch some video or read some book and learn it, I don't know. I just feel like it ends up being that I have to actually make the mistake myself, and really bring it in and really own it, and then really learn from it. Somebody can tell me like, oh, well, when you grow sweet potatoes, watch out for this, and then I'm watching out for it, but then it happens anyway. So like, all right, well, at least I saw it coming, but it still happened to me. And so at least now that I see it happen, now I can really kind of understand it and then move forward with how to do it again. And so try it again, and if that doesn't work, try it again, you know, and just have that faith, and don't think of it as work. It's just a process. We're learning, and we're in relation. So just be in relation, and don't see it as a failure. It's just it's an opportunity, you know. And you know, if it turns out to be compost, and that's good for your soil, and that's putting, you know, money back into the equity of your farm and the bank account, that's gonna continue serving you in the future. So there is no waste, there is no trash. It all gets cycled back, and that's again the sustainability loop, you know.
Wow, definitely some of the most wisest words said by a farmer on my show. I want to encourage you guys to heed those words. You know, I mean, one of the models that I go by in my life is, you know, there's no such thing as failure. You know, there's only successes, because if I kill a plant, I've succeeded at knowing how to kill a plant so that I could do it better and improve next time. I know many of you guys out there are thinking right now, but John, seriously though, I got brown thumbs, man, I can't do it. Well, another thing is attitude. With that kind of attitude, you're not going to succeed. So I want you guys to open up yourselves and, start the process of growing. I don't even want to say try, because if you try to stand up on top of a stool, you're trying to stand up on a stool. You will not actually stand up on the stool. I want you just to do. Like Yoda said, there is no try, just do. And I can't say it in the Yoda voice. So Ryan, we are here on Maui, and you have some awesome produce. How can somebody buy some of this amazing produce you guys saw in the video, whether you live on Maui or whether you're visiting Maui? Definitely want to recommend your first stop should be Ryan's stuff. It's some of the best here on the island.
We sell to Upcountry Farmers Market in Kula. It's at the Longs every Saturday. Starts at 7 in the morning, goes till about 11. We do a Wednesday market in Makawao Town at the Po'okela Church. Starts at 9 and goes till 1. We do wholesale deliveries to different restaurants. You can find our stuff a lot at Mana Foods and Down to Earth. Those are kind of the two larger health food stores in the island, and we do some other smaller stuff too. So we definitely have our produce around, and we appreciate everybody's support, and I'm very grateful for the support of the community, because if it wasn't for the support of the customers who want the quality and want the local and organic and want the best stuff, then I couldn't do it. So the mahalo for all the support from the community.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that, Ryan. Our sun's going down. I got to actually get going, but I really love spending time on your farm. This is actually the second time I visited this farm in my week here on Maui. I'm actually going to be flying out tomorrow, so this is pretty much one of the last episodes I'll be making for you guys. But I really sincerely hope you guys learned a few things along the way at Ryan's farm. Once again, whether you're wanting to start a farm, whether you're farming already, or whether you're just a gardener, there's tons of tidbits of knowledge in this video, and you might even want to watch it a second time, to get all the knowledge that was shared inside it. In addition, you want to be sure to subscribe to my videos if you're not already. I have over 1,000 videos now, and I visited this place, like 5 years ago, which once again, the link is down below if you want to see the transition from then to now, because it is amazing. It's like when I go on vacation for a week and leave my garden, and I come back after a week and it's like so much more grown. I literally got to come back here after like 5 years, and man, this place is like a jungle. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Once again, my name is John Kohler with GrowingYourGreens.com. We'll see you next time, and until then, remember, keep on growing. All right, this is John Kohler with GrowingYourGreens.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you guys, and we're still on vacation here in beautiful Maui, Hawaii. It was